2 adults, 2 full-time jobs, a combined income that looks solid on paper, and a financial anxiety that never quite goes away, 1 unexpected expense from debt, 1 job loss from crisis, working constantly, barely moving forward. That's not a spending problem. That's a pattern, and this video is about the mechanism behind it. When a dual income household feels stretched, the explanation comes fast. Lifestyle, inflation. You upgraded the apartment when the second salary arrived. You eat out more. If you just tightened the budget, you'd feel the difference. That explanation is not entirely wrong, but it's incomplete in a way that matters. It assumes the second income arrived cleanly, dropped into the household as usable money, waiting to be allocated. What actually happened is different. The second income arrived with an invoice, a set of costs that didn't come after it, they came with it, not lifestyle choices. Structural requirements, and those costs are where the real story starts. The trap isn't that 2 incomes are bad. The trap is that the system surrounding them is designed to claim them, both of them, completely, and then just a little more. Think about what a second income actually requires in order to exist. In a household where 1 adult was previously managing the home, a substantial amount of unpaid labor was happening inside it. Cooking, childcare, scheduling, errand running, the logistics of a functioning family life, that labor had real economic value. It just had no price tag. The moment the second earner takes a full-time job, that labor doesn't disappear. It gets outsourced, and outsourced labor costs money. Childcare is the most visible version of this. Full-time daycare for 1 child in the United States runs anywhere from $1,200 to over $3,000 per month, depending on the city. 2 children under 5 in a major metro, you're looking at $24,000 to $45,000 a year. That's not a lifestyle upgrade. That's not avocado toast. That's the fee for making the second income possible in the first place. Then there's the commute. A second worker almost always means a second car. Payments, insurance, fuel, parking, maintenance. A second vehicle runs $7,000 to $12,000 annually when everything is counted, not optional. Infrastructure, and then there's time. When both adults are working full-time, the household's available hours for basic logistics contract sharply. Weeknight dinners increasingly become delivery orders, not because the household is being extravagant, but because there are 2 exhausted adults, a 45-minute window between walking in the door and children's bedtime, and nothing defrosted. That convenience accumulates every week in delivery fees and quick-stop purchases that look like choices, but are actually the price of time scarcity. Add professional wardrobe, work lunches, after-school care, the occasional cleaning help for tasks that simply aren't getting done. The second income is already carrying a significant invoice before the household has made a single discretionary spending decision. Here is where it gets precise and more uncomfortable. When people evaluate whether a second income is working, they compare salary to salary. The second job pays $50,000. The household now earns $110,000. That's the number that feels real. The correct comparison is net gain to total strain, and almost nobody runs it. Take that $50,000. Federal and state income taxes claim their share. And because the salary stacks on top of existing household income, it often gets taxed at a higher marginal rate than the first. Effective taxes on the second salary frequently run 25 to 35% before the household sees a dollar. From what remains, subtract childcare. Subtract the second vehicle's annual costs. Subtract the time scarcity spending, the delivery orders, the convenience groceries, the school program, the dry cleaning, the slightly larger apartment, 2 people working from home, occasionally actually need. Run that math, and in many households, the net gain from the second income is somewhere between 30 and 40 cents on the dollar, sometimes less. The household is trading 2 full-time working lives, all the coordination, complexity, and exhaustion that comes with that, for a net financial gain that would not impress anyone if stated clearly at the outset. But here's the part that makes it harder to see. Those costs are distributed across dozens of line items in the budget. They never appear as a single number. The extraction is only visible in aggregate, and most households never do that aggregation. They just feel stretched and assume they must be doing something wrong. They're not doing something wrong. They're not seeing something clearly. There's a difference. Here's where the trap stops looking personal and starts looking structural. When a household builds its life around 2 incomes, as most do, gradually, over years. It doesn't just spend more, it reorganizes around those incomes. Housing decisions get made based on what two salaries can support. The mortgage or rent rises to meet combined borrowing capacity. Location choices balance two commutes, two school districts, two professional schedules. The apartment that wasn't affordable on one income becomes the apartment you live in. Apartments don't downsize easily. Two incomes in most suburban geographies means two cars, not a preference, a logistical requirement. That's not a choice revisited monthly. It's a fixed cost that endures. Subscriptions accumulate to fill the gap left by time scarcity. Meal kits, cleaning services, task outsourcing, premium apps, each one seems minor. Together, they represent a monthly floor the household now requires to function. And here is the most consequential part of the ratchet: the mortgage, the car loans, the daycare contracts, the accumulated fixed cost load. All of it is now calibrated to two incomes. The household requires two incomes to remain stable. Losing one income is no longer an inconvenience. It's a structural crisis, not because the household was reckless, because the fixed cost floor was set at a height one salary cannot clear. The household that looks more secure because it earns more has quietly become more fragile because it requires more, and that requirement is non-negotiable in the short term. Fixed costs click upward when income rises. They do not click back down when income falls. That asymmetry is the ratchet, and the ratchet only turns one way. This pattern isn't random. It's not millions of households independently making the same mistakes. It's the result of how several large economic forces organize themselves around the dual income household, and how they've made that structure progressively more expensive to maintain. Start with housing. Part of what drove median home prices upward over the past several decades was the entry of dual income households into the market. When lenders began pricing assets against two-income purchasing power, single-income households were largely priced out, and two-income households found that their combined borrowing capacity was absorbed almost entirely by what the market now charged. The second income didn't expand buying power, it became the admission price to the same tier of home their parents bought on one salary. Childcare is not incidental to this story. In most developed countries, childcare is treated as social infrastructure, subsidized, regulated, accessible. In the United States, it is largely privatized, priced at whatever a captive market of working parents will bear. That market is two adults who have no alternative. The market knows this. The price reflects it. Then there's risk. A generation ago, employer pensions transferred retirement risk away from the household. Employer-provided health care absorbed a larger share of medical costs. Job tenure was longer. The household carried less exposure to the unexpected. That risk has since been systematically transferred back. Retirement, healthcare cost management, income continuity, absorbed privately by households that now have almost no margin to absorb it with. A medical bill, a job disruption, a home repair, a parent who needs care. These are not unexpected events. They are certainties with uncertain timing. A household running on two incomes with near zero surplus isn't unlucky. It's structurally exposed to the ordinary. Sunday evening. The week needs to be organized. Lunches prepared or budgeted for. Schedules coordinated. Who picks up the child Tuesday when the after-school program closes at 6 and both adults have late calls? The answer is almost always either a paid solution or a significant amount of logistical stress. Both cost something. Wednesday night, both adults are home by 7. Nobody has bandwidth to cook. The delivery app opens. This is not a failure of discipline. This is time poverty converting into money directly in real time. The household is buying back 20 minutes it no longer has. Friday, an errand that's been on the list for 2 weeks. At this point, it costs less to outsource than to do personally. Not because money is abundant, but because personal time is so depleted it has its own scarcity value. Another invisible line item. Not lifestyle inflation. Structural pressure expressed as a transaction. The weekend arrives and both adults are recovering. Not from a hard week, from a normal week. The dinner out, the easier grocery trip, the small things that make the relentlessness feel survivable. None of this is irresponsible. All of it costs money, and all of it is a consequence of the structure, not the choices. Financial anxiety living alongside an income that should feel comfortable. That gap between the number and the feeling is exactly where the trap lives. The two-income trap is not a story about bad decisions. It is not a generational failure of discipline. It is a story about how middle-class life was rebuilt around dual-income households through childcare markets, housing prices, tax structures, privatized risk, and fixed cost accumulation in ways that systematically absorb the second income and leave the household more fragile than the income level suggests. The trap is not low income. It is the way rising income gets pre-claimed by a system designed to meet it at the door. Understanding that doesn't make the pressure disappear, but it changes what you're looking at. You're not looking at personal failure anymore. You're looking at a system with a very specific logic. Most people in this situation only feel it. Now you can see it. If this named something you've been living, share it. The people around you are probably in it too.